So in Hebrew, it's a nun with a segol, a sheen with a segol underneath it, and then, a nun with a segol, a fe without the dagesh, then a segol underneath that, then a sheen, so nefesh. And in here we have the pronominal ending on it twice in Psalm 62. And they translate it soul. Most of the time, in the Hebrew scriptures, the word nefesh does not mean soul, it means life, person. It has nothing to do with some disembodied part of you that is separate from you, or that is an inanimate part of you. They're just thinking in terms of, when they say nefesh, they're thinking in terms of who you are, your physicality primarily. It's in Greek thinking that we got to this notion of a separate kind of entity that could exist apart from a body. But in the scriptures, you have nefesh, and that is in essence who you are. Yeah, there was a comment.
Well, you answered it.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's like when somebody says, "Oh, that poor soul."
Yeah, oh, that poor soul, that poor person.
Yeah.
It's not as if there's some separate entity to them that is poor,
Right.
or that lives outside of them, or that is extra to them. We got this concept of soul really from Greek thinking that interspersed itself into the text through this kind of translation. So, and it's not it's not a translation fault. I'm saying it's a word that is entered into our vocabulary, and when we hear soul, we say, well, oh, okay, what does that mean? Because now we're talking in terms of something that's ethereal, that's kind of out here, that can exist apart from body. They never thought that something else could exist outside of body to animate it. Yeah.
So upon our death, what happens to us? Do we no longer exist?
Yeah.
And in the new world, what are we recreated, or what? So where does?
It's a great question. And so that's the key, is that did they think in terms of when we die that there is a body that goes to live somewhere, a soul, some inanimate part of us that goes to live somewhere else, and then what you end up having is reunification. Here's how modern thinking goes, modern Christian thinking goes, is that God will raise a body, and then he will reunite it with a soul, and that this soul hovers somewhere, not described exactly where. Some would say heaven, some would say other places, and then what God does is he raises your body and then puts a soul back, takes this soul and puts it back into the body. So these are the kinds of questions that arise when you start dealing with this particular term. Yeah.
So to that effect, the souls of the martyrs who are in Revelation, who are waiting for God to come down and punish people, is that
They're way under the tabernacle. Right?
Yeah, they're under the tabernacle. Yeah, that's one of the few texts that you get that talk about that might hint at something like that. Otherwise, the Hebrew scriptures, notice what you're pulling from. You're pulling from Revelation. I'm talking Hebrew scripture.
Yeah.
If we're just talking Hebrew scripture, and for a moment, let's talk that.
But when John wrote Revelation, his life was based on the Hebrew scripture, so this was not a foreign to him.
Yeah, I just think that it's not a topic. It's not a concept that is readily available in the Hebrew scriptures. Hold on, one over here. Go ahead.
So we just read the Shema where it's saying, "And you shall love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind."
With all your being. It's a way of saying with all your being. How can you love God without body? I mean, I don't know how you can inanimately. I don't know how you can inanimately love God. You have to have body in order to demonstrate.
Who said the soul is inanimate?
Well, what happens to, this is my point, is what happens to this soul, if we have this soul, after we die? What do they do?
Well,
Where
there's
do they
some
go?
indication that we sleep, some sleep to this day. So
Yeah, that's just, yeah.
So doesn't Revelation somewhat mirror Daniel? Is that also, does it talk about the souls of martyrs in Daniel?
Yes, it does.
It does.
And by the way, you can make the argument, and this is how some would do it, that we're pulling theology in Revelation from a vision.
Yeah,
So,
That's true.
it's,
yeah.
how much theology do we want, I'm just saying, how much do we want to pull from that? That's an interesting question.
Well, I think if it's a vision of heaven, then I think it's got some fairly sound.
And that's why I would argue that they don't go to heaven. We'll
Yes,
talk about
is
that in a
true.
moment.
That is, yes.
Yeah, that's
But
why.
is it in David or Daniel? I mean,
It is in Daniel in one or two places, yes.
the souls.
This idea of nefesh.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that's, again, how you're translating it. Okay, hold on.
Yeah, a couple of things. One, matter cannot be created nor destroyed, and neither can energy. It just changes state from one state to another. So obviously something happens, but that's all scientific. Otherwise, but then the non-canonical scriptures, it talks about there's a pit and all these souls go into this pit and they stay there and they wait.
Right.
And they wait till the judgment.
Yeah, and that's
So
another
that's all it
that's
says.
another translation issue, is that we have the word, here's the word in Hebrew. We have the word Sheol. And in many, many instances of your translations, they translate the word Sheol as hell. Okay? Problem is that when you go and look at
It's not hell.
what is actually transpiring in Sheol, it's not a place of fire particularly. It's a pit. It's a
That's
hole.
Gehenna.
In other words, we put you in the ground and go ahead.
I can't remember the verse, but you may have quoted, where God says he gives you ruach and takes it back again.
Yes. Yeah. He gives spirit. So here's what the text says. It says, let's be clear on this, how they thought about life. I'm talking about the Hebrew scriptures. They thought of this. In Genesis, God breathes into you.
Yeah.
So he creates your body.
Yeah, you got that right. That part was right.
Thank you. That was an affirmation.
Yeah.
Yes,
I'm sure glad I'm recording this. That's what
that is correct.
So
Next question.
he creates body, and what does God do? He breathes into it. So from a perspective of the Hebrew scriptures, life is about respiration, not about brain waves, not about heartbeat. It's about respirations. So we can also say he puts wind in you, or ruach.
Right.
And then what happens? When wind goes out of you, your body collapses. And where does the wind go? It says the wind goes back to God who gave it. It's only as we come into intertestamental literature and then into Greek thinking that I think works its way into the Septuagint, the Greek translation of the Hebrew scriptures, and then subsequent to that, apostolic texts, where you start to get this idea of disembodied soul that becomes separate from your body. It's there you kind of get that concept. Let me show you an example of this. Go with me. I'm going to show you what I mean by, just give me a good sentence. Go to me to 2 Kings for just a moment. 1 and 2 Samuel. 2 Kings.
Second Kings.
Yeah.
What was?
2 Kings chapter 2. Let me show you something. We'll have a discussion about this later on, but just showing you in the Psalms that the word nefesh does not always mean, and throughout the scriptures generally doesn't mean soul as it's translated. Okay, look at in 2 Kings chapter 2, and look at verse 10. This is Elijah and Elisha talking to each other. Elijah is about to leave, and he's talking with Elisha. And he said, you have asked a hard thing. He asked for a double portion of Elijah's spirit, which means a double, which he wants to have. He's going to have twice as many miracles. He says, you've asked a hard thing, yet if you see me as I am being taken from you, it shall be so for you. But if you do not see me, it shall not be so. And as they still went on and talked, behold, chariots of fire and horses of fire separated the two of them. And Elijah went up by a whirlwind into, and now your translations say heaven. Here's the problem with that. The word shemayim, the word translated, the word heaven, can also mean sky. It means sky. Now we have to keep reading, Because people say, well, there you go. Elijah went to heaven. Well, let's keep reading. It says, verse 18, now when the sons of the prophets who were at Jericho saw him opposite them, they said, the spirit of Elijah rests on Elijah. And they came to meet him and bowed to the ground before him. And they said to him, behold, now there are with your servants 50 strong men. Please let them go and seek your master. It may be that the Spirit of the Lord has caught him up and cast him upon some mountain or into some valley. And he said, you shall not send. So why do those in the context of this think that they can go and find him and that he might be in some mountain or valley that's nearby? If he's gone to heaven, the context tells us that something else is going on, which tells us that the word Shemayim, we know the word Shemayim can mean sky as well. Here's what we also know, and this is where we also know that earlier than this, Elijah had been picked up by God and placed other places with this same chariot. And we also know that later on, after this all happens here, that Elijah sends a letter back to an earthly king. So Elijah's sending letters, not from heaven. It's not as if he's dropping pieces of paper from the sky that are floating down here like this. He's already on this. He's still on this earth. What happens is this. Before we had planes, trains, and automobiles, God had a system by which he would move his people rapidly from one place to another, primarily the prophets, in order to get them from one place to the next. It was like an Uber. It was like yeah, it's like
Hey, God,
it's like the prophet be like, okay, God, you know, I need to go somewhere. It's like, okay, so yeah, you use Uber app, you have your Uber app, and then the prophet would push the Uber app, and God would send down a chariot of fire, and it would take it from one place to the next. He didn't go to heaven. So this is how things happen. By the way, in the book of Acts, you'll remember that Philip and the Ethiopian eunuch are talking, and it says that as soon as Philip stopped speaking with him, that the Spirit of the Lord picked him up and moved him from this place to this place instantaneously. Okay? God has a way of moving his people, primarily prophets and those with his message, from one place to the other. He doesn't take them, in this instance, as an example, it's not but I hear so many people say, wow, Elijah went to heaven. No, Elijah didn't go to heaven. Elijah went somewhere on this earth, moved by God, out of the way to do another ministry. He was on a celestial Uber, otherwise known as Merkava, a chariot.
Right.
Yes.
Scriptures also say that rain comes from the heavens.
From the sky.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the word sky and heavens can be. All right. So one and then two.
One last thing. You know, you said ruach, and that's, you know, God breathes his breath into us, and when we go back. It returns back to God. Just a thought that, you know, that's why he wants us to do the not eat pork and do these things that make us holy, because if we go back to him, if our spirit isn't holy like his spirit is, then would we not be accepted back? Because he cannot have something that's not holy.
I don't know. I'm reticent on that one.
I'm just asking.
Yeah, I don't know. That one's kind of too Twilight Zone for me.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Hey, I live there.
With what you're saying, man, and how we're going to tie this together, it's still a little amiss, but in the world to come, Sukkot, each nation is required to send representatives. They were thinking, well, if you don't have the money. Well, what you're saying is the heavenly Uber will take us where we need to go as far as getting to Jerusalem for Sukkot, possibly.
Sure. I mean, he can move things rapidly. The text tells us in the Psalms and elsewhere, he's the rider of the clouds. He rides the clouds. He rides the wind. So God has a transit system. So put this way, I'll say it this way: God was doing airplanes with chariots long before man was doing them with metal.
And without Scotty.
God was like, I can move you from here to there, not a problem. No pressurization, no cabin pressure issues. No in-flight service, no in-flight movie. We're just moving you from here to there on the chariot. It'll swoop down, pick you up, take you, and it'll be even faster than the Concorde. Just boom, you're there. As soon as
This is where we get the
Anyway.
aliens.
all right, let's have some fun with it. So we'll talk some more. Let's talk some more on this because I think it's a worthy topic.
So was Yeshua more real than the walls that he walked through
Yes.
when he resurrected in his body?
Oh, yeah, that
I mean, he's God, so he
Yeah,
can
they're
do
both-
anything. But it's just the,
They were,
because he was able to be touched and all that. It wasn't some mystical mist that's.
It wasn't mystical, it was
Yeah. Pretty awesome. Thanks, bro.